Yang Yi figured it out in an instant. It was a plot, an assassination. All of this was just an assassination planned for him. Yang Yi laughed with self-ridicule when he thought of this. I really was blind this time. However, he had to admit that their act was very convincing. Especially the pair of mother and daughter. It was convincing to the point he'd been deceived by them. Unfortunately, their strengths were too weak. The woman's dagger had stabbed against Yang Ye's throat. The young girl's dagger had stabbed against Yang Ye's nether regions. Monkey's spear had stabbed against the center of Yang Ye's forehead, and Barbarian's fist had smashed against Yang Ye's head. All of them simultaneously revealed happy smiles. It was like they'd seen the 5,000 top-grade energy stones, heaven-rank techniques, heaven-rank treasures. In next to no time, all of them were stunned, and the smiles on their faces had frozen before it was replaced by boundless shock and terror, because they felt like they'd struck extremely hard heaven-rank iron. Not only had they been unable to pierce through Yang Ye's skin, their own hands had become numbs. Especially the young woman. Her dagger had even rebounded to the ground. Yang Yi held the spear that was at the center of his brows before suddenly exerting strength of it. The spear shot backward, and Monkey didn't even have the chance to react before his own spear pierced through his body. Next, Yang Yi suddenly swept his left hand backward, and his arm struck Barbarian's head. The latter was blasted flying. The woman intended to retreat, but it was too late. Yang Yi had swiftly risen his left leg before stomping down upon her stomach, causing her to instantly fly over 300 m away. Her fate was unknown. Yang Yi lowered his head to gaze at the young girl who was still holding his leg. She glanced at Yang Yi as well, and then she suddenly picked up her dagger and stabbed it at Yang Yi again. A ray of light flashed, and then fresh blood sprayed all over the ground. Yang Ye's figure flashed over to the woman, and he gazed at her while she looked resentfully at him. He said, I originally thought that all of you would take your own lives upon failing to assassinate me. I never expected to find you alive. That's good as well because I have a few questions for you. Of course, you can choose not to answer. However, I suggest that you don't do that because I really don't like torturing women. However, I'll have no choice but to wrong myself if you refuse to cooperate. Would you let me go if I answer you? Said the woman. Yang Yi shook his head and said, I'll let you die a comfortable death. Of course, if you take your life right now, then you can forget everything I just said. But I think that you won't take your own life, right? The woman didn't say a word. Yang Yi said, I only have a single question. Did all of you come to kill me on your own accord, or did someone put you up to it? The woman remained silent. A ray of cold light flashed. A shrill cry suddenly resounded from her because the tendon in her arm had been severed. Yang Yi held his sword in hand and pointed it at the woman's nose as he said, Will you not answer me? The woman gazed resentfully at him yet didn't speak. Hiss! Her face warped while her limbs twitched madly on the ground because Yang Yi had sliced off her nose. But that wasn't the end. Yang Yi waved his hand once more, and then the tendon in her other arm was severed. Next, her ears and the tendons in her legs were severed one after the other. Yang Yi placed his sword before her eyes and said, I'll give you one last chance, and you don't have to answer me anymore if you refuse again. Have you heard of death by dismemberment? It's fine even if you haven't because if you don't grab this last opportunity, then you'll be able to experience it for yourself right now. I'm not kidding. The woman stared at him with terror. Right when Yang Yi revealed impatience in his eyes, the woman suddenly said, The city governor of Huntsman City hired us to kill you. Please give me a swift death. Give me a swift death. The city governor of Huntsman City? A cold glow flashed through Yang Ye's eyes, and then he looked down at the woman who was in pain and said, How silly. Wouldn't you have been able to avoid suffering by telling me earlier? You just had to be stubborn. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi waved his hand, and there was no further movement from the woman. Suddenly, the cry of a baby resounded. Yang Yi turned around and saw the infant which the woman dropped on the ground earlier was bawling. Yang Yi walked over, glanced at the baby with bright round eyes and said, I, Yang Yi. Would really be impressed if you're an assassin as well. He took the infant in his arms after he said that, and then he walked towards the city. Yang Yi had just entered the city when its gates were shut. After that, countless figures flashed out from every corner. It wasn't long before almost 1,000 profounders appeared here. At the same time, a group of armored soldiers who held bows in their hands had appeared on the city walls. A middle-aged man who wore luxurious clothes appeared in front of Yang Yi. He sized Yang Yi up before he said, "As expected of the Sword Emperor, even the 7th-ranked group of assassins on the assassin rankings, the seamless hit, weren't able to kill you. Truly extraordinary. Right? I'm the city governor of Huntsman City, Lu Feng. I've been waiting for you for a long time." Yang Yi said, "I'm a little curious about something. Why are you so sure that I'm Yang Yi?" Lu Feng grinned and said, "Because a bounty for you has been issued to all the cities throughout the territories of the exalted Han Empire, and the bounty includes a portrait of you. Moreover, my exalted Han Empire has been clearly aware of your whereabouts since the beginning. So, that was why you encountered that assassination just now. You've been clearly aware of my whereabouts?" Yang Yi frowned and said, "What do you mean?" Lu Feng shook his head and said, "I can't tell you the answer to that. You just have to know that your whereabouts have been known to the exalted Han Empire since you appeared in Needless City. The reason I told you all of this is because I wanted to tell you that you'll definitely die if you continue on this path. Because even if you escape my grasps, you'll still encounter an endless pursuit." When he spoke up to this point, Lu Feng paused for a moment before he said, "The mortal emperor is the representative of the heavens and the earth. He is blessed by the heavens and the earth. Sword Emperor, it's truly unwise for you to go against the mortal emperor. Sword Emperor, our human race seems to be strong right now, but it is actually in danger of being annihilated. The demon territory and devil territory have been hostile against our human race for a very long time, so our races will definitely fight each other in the future. Besides that, the oceanic clans of the Ocean of Anarchy and the Eastern Ocean have been eyeing our human race for a long time. If our human race were to enter into war with the demon or devil race, then the oceanic clans will definitely participate as well. The slightest mistake would put our human race in danger. Sword Emperor, you're an outstanding genius of the current age. If you were to join forces with the mortal emperor, then you'll definitely be able to subdue all territories, accomplish matchless merits, and be remembered through the ages." Yang Yi was stunned, and then he felt slightly amused. Needless to say, the middle-aged man was much more eloquent than the city governor of Needless City. Yang Yi said, "Truthfully speaking, you're really too eloquent. It sounded like I would be a sinner of the human race if I didn't side with Luo Jun. However, I'd like to say something. It has always been your exalted Han Empire that has been trying to kill me since I arrived at the Central Territory, right? Moreover, don't tell me that assassination from before was a joke." The smile on Luo Feng's face vanished as he said, "Sword Emperor, will you really not give it any further consideration? Oh right, bring the Sword Emperor's friend over here. Perhaps she'll be able to make the Sword Emperor change his mind." A woman was pushed down on the ground by Luo Feng's side. Her hair was disheveled while her entire body was covered in bloody marks from the whip. She was none other than Lu Wanner from Needless City. Yang Ye's face turned gloomy when he saw her, and the mark of the pearl of baleful blood appeared at the center of his forehead. Lu Wanner saw Yang Yi and she spoke with pain. "Leave. Leave quickly." "Ha ha." Lu Feng smiled and said, "Young Master Yang, this woman is really devoted to you. I originally intended to make her assassinate you, but she actually chose death over obeying me. So I had no choice but to use her to clear your mind. Don't worry, I didn't humiliate her. After all, I want to become friends with young Master Yang. But if young Master Yang is unwilling to become friends with me, then I can't guarantee her safety. What realm of cultivation are you at?" Yang Yi suddenly gazed at Lu Feng and spoke these words. Lu Feng was stunned, and then he said, "I'm not very capable and am only at the 9th rank of the spirit realm. Of course, it wasn't my strength that allowed me to become the city governor of Huntsman City. It was—" Suddenly, Lu Feng's voice stopped abruptly because Yang Yi was already in front of him, and the ancient sheath in Yang Ye's hand had pierced through his stomach. Yang Yi gazed at Lu Feng's face, which was covered in disbelief, as he said, "You're very smart, but you make a mistake in your plans, and that was my strength." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi twisted his right hand, and then Lu Feng's body exploded into pieces. Kill! Meanwhile, the others in the surroundings recovered from their shock. One of them had given the command, and then countless arrows shot down towards Yang Yi and Lu Wanner from midair. Yang Ye's figure flashed, and then the heads of the two guards who were guarding Lu Wanner flew into the air with a single swing of his sword. He passed the infant in his arms to Lu Wanner before he wrapped his left arm around her and flashed into the air. After that, rays of light flashed out from the sword chest on his back and shot into the air. They flashed towards the group of archers under Yang Ye's command, and then countless shrill cries resounded. Kill! Kill him! Anyone who kills Yang Yi will obtain 5,000 energy stones, heaven rank techniques, and heaven rank treasures. Kill him! Someone roared from within the ground, and then the eyes of countless people turned red with greed as they disregarded everything and charged at Yang Yi. Yang Yi wouldn't show mercy, of course. He swung the ancient sheath swiftly, and the countless fine threads of sword chi covered the heavens and the earth as they descended down. The group of profounders charging at the front were the first to bear the brunt of it, and they didn't even have the chance to evade before they fell lifelessly to the ground. However, this didn't make the profounders behind them stop at all. Conversely, all of them charged even more madly at him. An hour later, an expanse of corpses covered the area right before the city gates, and the blood there seemed like it had formed into a river. Yang Yi descended to the ground with Lu Wanner in his arms, and then the blood and resentment within those corpses instantly shot swiftly into the center of Yang Ye's forehead. Yang Yi almost threw up from the dense smell of blood, but he couldn't stop it at all. All he could do was allow the pearl at the center of his forehead to madly absorb the blood and resentment here. Tsk. As expected of the Sword Emperor. You slaughtered all these elite troops of Huntsman City like they were just dogs. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm an elite disciple of the Ascension Sect, Qin Chuan. My fellow junior brothers and I have come here to borrow your head, Sword Emperor. I wonder if you mind. 10 disciples that wore the blue-colored robes of a sect appeared here. Qin Chuan grinned as he gazed at Yang Yi. There wasn't a trace of fear in his eyes because of the corpses all over the ground, and there was only a warm smile and confidence on his face. The Ascension Sect was a 9th-rank sect, so it was impossible to join such a sect without being a peerless genius. Qin Chuan just happened to be a genius amongst geniuses. He'd attained the 9th rank of the Spirit Realm at the age of 19, and he became the younger 9th-rank Spirit Realm profounder in the last 100 years of the Ascension Sect's history. Moreover, he was very likely to be the youngest Exalt Realm expert in the Ascension Sect as well. So, the sect master of the Ascension Sect had taken Qin Chuan as his own personal disciple and had even given him a pseudo-Dao artifact. Qin Chuan's combat strength had instantly multiplied upon obtaining the pseudo-Dao artifact, and it was even possible for him to kill Exalt Realm experts. Even some supreme elders of the Ascension Sect had left their secluded cultivation to provide him with guidance as they felt that he was the future hope for the sect. It wasn't the Ascension Sect which had sent him to look for Yang Yi this time, and he'd come here on his own. Because Yang Ye's reputation was truly too great, and killing Yang Yi would allow his reputation to shock the entire continent. Moreover, he felt that he wouldn't lose to anyone in the same realm of cultivation, even the Sword Emperor and Martial God. Yang Yi grinned to Lu Wanner to indicate that she shouldn't be nervous, and then he turned around to glance at Qin Chuan's group as he said, "The Ascension Sect? I never expected that even the Ascension Sect has become Luo Jun's dog. Alright, let's cut the crap. Are all of you going to fight me as a group?" "No." Qin Chuan shook his head and said, "A gentleman doesn't bully others with numbers. I asked my junior brothers to come with me to bear witness to the battle and prevent you from fleeing. You want to fight me in a one-on-one battle?" Yang Yi was astounded. Qin Chuan nodded, and then he opened up his right palm before a sword which was covered in a cold glow appeared in his grasp. Qin Chuan placed the flat of the sword against his forehead while his left finger pressed down upon its tip. He said, Yang Yi, rumors say that the Sword Emperor is the best amongst all sword cultivators, and it's said that no sword cultivators stand before the Sword Emperor. I, Qin Chuan, am not very capable, but I want to see if the rumors are true. As soon as he finished speaking, a ray of light suddenly erupted from within him, and it remained condensed around Qin Chuan without dispersing. 8th level sword intent. Yang Yi was slightly surprised. He hadn't expected that this fellow had actually attained 8th level sword intent. After all, this fellow was only around the age of 20 yet had attained the 9th rank of the spirit realm and even comprehended 8th level sword intent. Besides a Nanjing, Emoku, and Luo Shui, this fellow was the most monstrous genius that Yang Yi had seen. Yang Yi flipped his palm, and then dragon bone appeared in his hand. He said, "That sword in your hand is a pseudo-Dao artifact, right? That's a good discerning gaze you have." Qin Chuan said, "It's called Frostlight. It was given to me by my master. Yang Yi, I don't want to win an unfair battle. You have a Dao artifact yourself, so use it. I want to defeat you in an upright manner and allow the world to know that the so-called Sword Emperor isn't invincible. The reason they couldn't defeat you is only because they were weak. I don't need a Dao artifact to deal with you. Come at me." Yang Yi pointed his sword at Qin Chuan while he gazed calmly at him. Actually, it should be said that Yang Yi was looking at Qin Chuan's sword. Yes, he'd taken a liking to it. They say that you, Yang Yi, are arrogant to the extreme. I never expected that it would be true. Fine. I'll make you pay for your arrogance today. The glow Qin Chuan emanated grew increasingly denser and fiercer. In the next moment, Qin Chuan suddenly slashed frostlight at Yang Yi. Countless rays of light transformed into a blizzard of the sword that was over 30 m tall. The blizzard was seemingly material when enhanced by his 8th level sword intent, and the formidable might of his sword intent and the pressure it emanated caused the other disciples of the Ascension sect to dare not look right at his attack. However, Yang Yi had no intention of dodging it. The blizzard collided with Yang Ye's body, and then the others watched in astonishment as the blizzard seemed to enter Yang Ye's body and vanish. Qin Chuan's eyes opened wide, and they were filled with disbelief. Yang Yi greedily took a deep breath. Needless to say, the feeling of devouring sword intent was really not bad. Yang Yi felt that if this fellow continuously exerted his sword intent against him while he just absorbed it without end, then he might be able to attain perfection in sword intent very soon. How could that be possible? How could that be possible? Qin Chuan gazed at Yang Yi with disbelief. This had completely exceeded the scope of his understanding. After all, it was 8th level sword intent. But it was gone just like that. Qin Chuan refused to believe it, and he swung his sword again. A strand of sword chi shot out explosively. Yet Yang Yi still didn't dodge and allowed it to enter his body. Yang Yi had no choice but to admit that sword intent and sword chi were like medicinal herbs to him, and he actually felt extremely comfortable when the sword intent and sword chi entered his body. Suddenly, Qin Chuan seemed to have thought of something, and it caused his expression to change. He pointed a finger at Yang Yi in disbelief and said, You've attained 9th level sword intent." The expressions of the others from the Ascension sect changed drastically when they heard him. Yang Yi didn't answer Qin Chuan. His figure flashed and appeared before Qin Chuan. The latter was astounded, and he stabbed swiftly with his sword. However, his sword had merely traveled halfway when a terrifying pressure pressed down upon him, causing the glow on his sword to instantly vanish. Qin Chuan was horrified. At this moment, he truly understood that Yang Ye's sword intent had attained the 9th level. That was his last thought because a sword had stabbed through his chest. After he killed Qin Chuan, Yang Yi gestured with his right hand and caused frostlight to fall into his grasp. Meanwhile, the others from the Ascension sect had recovered from their shock. Their countenances had turned pale when they saw Qin Chuan's corpse. Qin Chuan was a peerless genius of the Ascension sect, and he was the personal disciple of the sect master. Since he'd left the sect in secret with them and was killed by Yang Yi, they were able to imagine the outcome that awaited them. Kill Yang Yi and avenge senior brother Qin Chuan. One of them shouted these words, and then all of them pounced at Yang Yi. Rays of light flashed incessantly from Yang Ye's sword, and all of them were lying on the ground in less than 15 minutes of time. Young Master Yang. Meanwhile, Lu Wanner walked over to Yang Yi with the intention of saying something. However, Yang Yi frowned before turning around to look at the sky behind him. He pondered deeply for a moment before he placed his right hand around Lu Wanner's waist, and then he utilized the 9th Hell Sword Wings to vanish on the spot. Less than 10 minutes after Yang Yi left, a middle-aged man appeared at the entrance of Huntsman City. He frowned upon noticing the corpses that covered the ground. Suddenly, his gaze descended onto Qin Chuan's corpse, and his figure stiffened. Moreover, his eyes instantly turned crimson red while his countenance turned horrifyingly savage. Yang Yi, I swear that Qin Tian, will kill you, the middle-aged man roared like a wild beast. Meanwhile, an old man in a blue robe appeared before the city gates. He gazed at the middle-aged man who had Qin Chuan's corpse in his arms, and then the old man shook his head and sighed. I was still too late. As soon as he finished speaking, a cold glow flashed through the old man's eyes as he said, What a sword emperor! He has actually attained 9th level sword intent. Besides in Nanjing, he's definitely invincible amongst the younger generation. Qin Tian bowed to the old man and said, Sect Master, please save little Chuan. The old man glanced at Qin Chuan's corpse before he shook his head and said, If it was an ordinary injury from a sword, then I would be able to bring him back to life even if his heart was injured. However, this is no ordinary injury. Yang Ye's sword intent has attained the 9th level, and it completely destroyed the vitality within little Chuan. Even I am helpless against that. Qin Tian's face was covered in dejection when he heard this, but it quickly turned into a ferocious expression. I know you want to avenge him, but even you aren't able to defeat Yang Yi now, and he might even kill you instead. Take little Chuan's body back to the Qin clan for a proper burial. He is a disciple of my Ascension sect, so he should naturally be avenged by my Ascension sect as well, said the old man in a low voice. Sect Master, are you going to make a move against him? Qin Tian raised his head and gazed at the old man. The old man shook his head and said, I can't act against him because of certain reasons. However, it doesn't mean that my Ascension sect can't kill him. I've ordered Lu Changyuan to return to the sect. It shouldn't be difficult for him to kill Yang Yi with the strength he possesses. Lu Changyuan? Qin Tian was shocked. The King of Spears, Lu Changyuan, who fought 3 Exalt Realm experts without losing while at the 9th rank of the Spirit Realm 10 years ago. Didn't he vanish for over 10 years of time? He's still alive. The old man nodded and said, He merely went to the demon territory to temper himself. He's at the 3rd rank of the Exalt Realm now. His tempering in the demon territory has allowed his strength to far surpass his peers. Even ordinary 9th rank Exalt Realm experts might not be able to defeat him now. So, it shouldn't be difficult for him to kill Yang Yi, who isn't even an Exalt Realm expert. Thank you, Sect Master. Alas, what a pity. If I weren't in closed-door cultivation, little Chuan wouldn't have suffered such a fate. Alas. A group of guards came to our Lu clan after you left, and they asked about our relationship with you. I told them that there was no relationship between us, and then they started to slaughter my Lu clan. Besides me, the entire Lu clan was completely slaughtered in less than 15 minutes. Everyone was dead. Lu Wanner had the infant in her arms as she sat on the ground, and her face was covered in tears. I'm sorry. I never expected that it would bring such a calamity to your clan. Yang Yi gazed at Lu Wanner, who was covered in the scars created by whips, and he felt quite guilty in his heart, because everything she suffered could be said to be his fault. Lu Wanner shook her head and said, It would be no different even if young Master Yang didn't appear in my Lu clan. The Chun clan has been planning to take control of my Lu clan for a very long time. Marrying me is merely their method to take control of my Lu clan. The laughable thing is that my father wasn't able to see through it. Yang Yi pondered deeply for a moment before he said, Miss Lu, what do you intend to do from now on? I want to become strong. She raised her head to gaze at him while the gentleness on her face had vanished. Yang Yi fell silent for a moment before he passed Dragonbone to her, and he said, "You can't stay in the Central Territory. Take this sword and head to the Southern Territory's sword sect. Say that I recommended you to the sect. They'll take good care of you. As for how far you'll go in your path of cultivation, all of that depends on your own fortune. I might not be able to arrive at the Southern Territory," said Lu Wanner softly. Yang Yi withdrew a spatial ring and gave it to her as he said, "There are 100 top-grade energy stones here, and they are sufficient for your cultivation. As for your safety, you don't have to worry about it at all. You just have to continue traveling towards the Southern Territory. Someone will be there to protect you on your way." She took the spatial ring from him, nodded, and then gazed at the child in her arms. "What about her?" Yang Yi shrugged and said, "I'm definitely unable to take her with me. If you're willing, then take her to the sword sect with you. If you're not, then give her to a family in the vicinity." Lu Wanner nodded, and then she left with the child in her arms. But she merely took a few steps before she stopped, and then she turned around and gazed at Yang Yi. "I want to become as strong as you." That was what Lu Wanner said before she left. Yang Yi just stared blankly at her vanished figure. He knew that she wasn't joking because he saw the same firmness and resolution he had in her eyes. With her disposition, she should have stayed at home, enjoyed the warmth and comfort there, and received the care and protection of others. But the cruelty of reality caused her to have no choice but to experience hardships and lay eyes upon the most ruthless side of society. In short, she was an unlucky woman. No, to a certain extent, she should be considered as lucky, because it was very likely that she would be able to take control of her fate in the future and prevent herself from being at the mercy of others. How many people could truly take control of their fate and destiny on this continent which respected the strong? Yang Yi didn't let her head to the Southern Territory by herself, and he'd sent out his newest sword servant, that city governor of Needless City, to escort her. So, unless someone targeted her on purpose, it shouldn't be a problem for her to arrive at the Southern Territory while protected by an Exalt Realm expert. Yang Yi withdrew his gaze and looked at the pseudo-Dao artifact in his hand. Frostlight. It was around 1 m long, dark blue in color, and it emanated extreme coldness. Yang Ye's profound energy surged into it, and then a dazzling and icy cold glow instantly erupted from the sword before the ground around him was immediately covered in ice. A freezing effect. Yang Yi was quite surprised. He hadn't expected that this sword would actually possess the ability to freeze. He hesitated for a moment before he stretched out his hand to touch its blade, and his fingers were instantly frozen in ice. At the same time, a strand of ghastly coldness instantly assaulted him, and he couldn't help but shudder because of it. The coldness he experienced and the ice on his fingers were only dispersed upon activating his sword intent. Yang Yi wasn't just surprised this time, he was slightly shocked. He hadn't expected its freezing effect to actually be so formidable, because even he felt threatened by it. Of course, it was much more inferior to Void Flash, but the consumption of this sword was far lower than Void Flash. Even though he couldn't swing it without any worries at his current cultivation, he could still use it like Dragonbone with the help of extreme-grade energy stones. At this moment, Yang Yi felt quite lucky. He felt lucky that he'd comprehended 9th-level sword intent. Otherwise, he would have definitely been at a disadvantage in that battle with Qin Chuan. The freezing effect of this sword was similar to the effect of sword intent. It was capable of suppressing the enemy's mobility, and it could even freeze the enemy. It could be said that the suppressive ability of this sword's freezing effect was even greater than 5th-level sword intent. Of course, one had to possess exceptional ability to utilize this sword. For example, he was able to utilize it because he possessed 9th-level sword intent and didn't fear suffering backlash from Frostlight's freezing effect. However, an ordinary spirit realm profounder would probably become frozen before even being able to harm the enemy. In short, this sword was a good gain. Yang Yi didn't continue on his way this time. He stood on the spot, closed his eyes, and released his consciousness into the surroundings. He opened his eyes a short while later while a strand of bewilderment flashed through his eyes. The sword spirit appeared by his side with a wave of his right hand, and then he asked, "According to that city governor of Huntsman City, The exalted Han Empire has known of my whereabouts since I arrived at the Central Territory. I utilized my divine sense earlier yet wasn't able to notice anyone following me. What exactly is going on? Could it be that a monarch realm expert is keeping track of my whereabouts? Yang Yi wasn't able to accept his whereabouts being in the hands of his enemy because that would put him in a passive position. The sword spirit swept the surroundings with her gaze. Suddenly, she raised her head and looked into the sky. She pondered deeply for a moment before she said, "If I'm not wrong, then something is watching you from the sky." Yang Yi raised his head and looked up. The sky was clear blue, and there was nothing there besides a few clouds. However, he didn't think the sword spirit was lying to him. So, he hesitated for a moment before the 9th hell sword wings flapped on his back, and he flashed into the sky. After he arrived 300 m high in the air, Yang Ye's divine sense swept out once more. Yet he still didn't notice anything, and it made him even more bewildered. Go up further. Meanwhile, the sword spirit arrived by Yang Ye's side, and her gaze shot towards a cloud that was floating in the sky. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly as he gazed at that cloud. A ray of light shot out from the blue sword chest, and it instantly arrived beneath the cloud before it minced it up into pieces. Right at the instant it was destroyed, a large silver eagle shot out from within it, and it flapped its wings as it dived down towards Yang Yi. At the same time, 2 golden rays of light suddenly shot out from its golden eyes. Those rays of light were extremely swift and instantly arrived above Yang Yi. An exalt rank demon beast. Yang Ye's expression changed slightly. He hadn't expected that the eagle would actually be a demon beast at the exalt rank. No wonder it was able to fly up so high and conceal itself so well. Yang Yi waved his hand and a strand of sword chi shot out violently before instantly shattering those 2 rays of light. At the same time, his figure flashed and transformed into a ray of light that shot towards the silver eagle. Screech! The silver eagle emanated a sharp and ear-piercing cry before countless rays of golden light erupted from its eyes. On the other hand, Yang Yi swung frostlight swiftly, and his sword chi covered the heavens and the earth as they shot off towards the golden rays of light. Bang! Numerous explosions resounded incessantly through the sky while countless waves of air swept out in succession, causing even space to tremble. Finally, both of them collided. Yang Ye's sword stabbed onto the silver eagle's claw, and it caused his expression to change because his arm felt slightly numb. Obviously, he'd underestimated its strength, and it was just this instant of surprise that allowed the silver eagle to wrap its claw around Frostlight. However, right at this moment, a strand of bone-piercing coldness suddenly erupted from the sword, causing the eagle to instantly release it, dive down, and claw at Yang Ye's hand. Obviously, the silver eagle intended to claw through Yang Ye's head, but it failed because Yang Ye's head was as hard as its claws. Yang Yi grabbed one of its claws with his left hand, and then he stabbed Frostlight at the eagle's stomach. Clang! His sword wasn't able to pierce through the eagle's stomach, but his 9th-level sword intent surged out in the next moment, and then it instantly enveloped the silver eagle. After that, Yang Yi twisted his wrist, and a hissing sound resounded as Frostlight pierced through the eagle's stomach. The eagle closed its eyes slowly. On the ground, Yang Yi shook his head as he gazed at the eagle in his hand. How nice would it be if the little fellow were here? He wouldn't have to do anything if the little fellow were here because she would only have to wave her claw before this formidable silver eagle would probably lay prone on the ground in submission. Little fellow. A trace of a smile appeared on the corners of Yang Ye's mouth when he thought of that fluffy violet-colored little fellow. Looks like I need to find the opportunity to travel to the demon territory. The demon emperor said that the little fellow would be able to take human form after she receives that inheritance of hers. I really look forward to that. Yang Yi restrained his thoughts and gave the silver eagle to the sword spirit as he said, "It should be possible to refine it into a sword servant, right?" The sword spirit glanced at it before she nodded. Yang Ye's smile grew even wider when he saw this. With this silver eagle as a sword servant of his, it would be almost impossible for others to launch a sneak attack or ambush against him. Moreover, its strength was very formidable as well, so it would be of great help to him once it was made into a sword servant. It was like killing two birds with one stone. Xianxia sat cross-legged on the ground, withdrew two extreme-grade energy stones, and started to absorb the energy within them. He felt like he was about to attain a breakthrough during the battles just now. At this moment, his cultivation had arrived at a critical point, and it was impossible to suppress anymore. Since it couldn't be suppressed, then it was time to advance. The wilds. Mortal Emperor. We've lost contact with the God Vision Eagle. It's fine. Should we send more to follow him? There's no need for that. You would just be sending them to their deaths. It's not easy to obtain them, so don't waste them on Xianxia. Spread my order. Anyone who killed Xianxia will be rewarded with 8,000 top-grade energy stones, 3 mid-grade heaven rank techniques, 3 mid-grade heaven rank dark treasures, and the position of city governor over a city with 5 million residents. Besides that, notify the Southern Territory's Flower Palace that now is the best time if they want to take revenge. Moreover, notify the sects and the Tuan clans that once the Southern Territory is subdued, then the one who killed Xianxia would have priority to choose from the various places throughout Southern Territory that possess abundant energy. Yes. Luo Jun stood up slowly from his seat, and he walked off towards the door. The area 3 kilometers ahead within his field of vision was completely blurry, and his expression was solemn as he gazed at it, because that area was where the ruins left behind by Saint Lu Yun resided. Besides Saint Lu Yun's inheritance, the world portrait resided there as well. The world portrait. Ha! Xianxia opened his eyes, and then his lips parted slightly as he spat out a mouthful of foul air. The 4th rank of the spirit realm. Hee. I've taken another step forward. Xianxia chuckled before he gazed at the sword spirit, and she nodded slightly before she waved her right hand. The silver eagle appeared before Xianxia, and then his spiritual energy bore into its forehead. Around 10 minutes later, another pair of eyes which belonged to Xianxia resided in the sky. This pair of eyes far exceeded Xianxia's expectations because he noticed that they could actually clearly see everything within an area of 250 kilometers. Even an ant was clearly visible before this pair of eyes. Xianxia couldn't help but shudder when he thought about how such a terrifying pair of eyes had been locked onto him. Fortunately, they belonged to him now. So, it wasn't he who should be worried, but those who came to kill him. Xianxia chuckled, and then the 9th hell sword wings flapped behind him before he vanished on the spot. The demon territory. Sun Piercer. A man with hair that hung down to his shoulders leaped up into the air on the peak of a mountain. His spear was like a scorching sun that carried dazzling and resplendent golden light as he tossed it swiftly towards the ground below. The spear left a golden trail of light behind it as it descended like a meteor, and it shot explosively towards an enormous mountain-sized white-colored tiger which resided on the ground below. Roar! It raised its head and roared furiously before swiftly slapping its claws on the ground. The entire mountain trembled violently while its figure leaped up and pounced towards the spear. Bang! The two of them had just collided with each other when the spear pierced into the tiger, and the spear carried it along as it embedded itself into the ground. Bang! That entire area on the mountain instantly rumbled and exploded apart when the spear descended there while carrying the white tiger along with it, and it caused a huge amount of dust and dirt to suffuse the air. The man descended by the white tiger's corpse before he gestured with his right hand, and the spear which was lodged within the white tiger's body transformed into a silver ray of light that flew into his grasp. Too weak. So the 4 great divine beast clans aren't really great. Looks like I have no choice but to look for the dragon clan to train on. The man shook his head, turned around, and left. However, he'd just taken a few steps when the space before him fluctuated violently. It was caused by a transmission talisman. The man frowned a short while later and said, "The Sword Emperor? Invincible amongst those of the same realm of cultivation? There actually isn't a single disciple in the sect who's a match for him? Interesting. I never expected that such a genius would have actually appeared in the Central Territory while I've been in the Demon Territory for the last few years. Interesting. I hope he isn't too weak, or it would be too boring." As soon as he finished speaking, the man tore space apart and vanished on the spot. Martial World City. It could only be considered as a small city amongst the numerous cities throughout the exalted Han Empire, and it only had a little over 5 million residents. However, this small city was very famous because its residents held extremely high regard for martial strength. Practically every single resident of the city was a profounder. This was also the reason why Martial World City became the city which was most difficult to manage throughout the numerous cities in the exalted Han Empire. Because not a single city governor of Martial World City had been able to live for more than a year. The current city governor's name was Xianxia, and he was a second-rank Exalt Realm expert. However, he was an exception because he'd lived for 2 years since he assumed the position of city governor. Of course, this wasn't because he was at the Exalt Realm, and it was because he had a good elder sister instead. His elder sister was a concubine of the exalted Han Empire's emperor. It was exactly why Xianxia had lived a peaceful life for the last 2 years. But that was all, because he wasn't able to manage anything within the city. Moreover, his older sister had told him not to interfere with anything within the city, because the inhabitants of Martial World City were formidable, and the distribution of powers here was very complicated. So, the slightest mistake would be equivalent to eternal damnation. Xianxia was very aggrieved and depressed from being a governor with no actual authority, because he desired to attain great accomplishments in his lifetime. Unfortunately, he was unable to interfere in anything within the city. However, his opportunity had arrived. Good. Very good. Ha. It has been 2 years now, and the opportunity that I, Xianxia, have been waiting for has finally arrived. Xianxia paced up and down incessantly within a room in the city governor's estate. His hands were clenched tightly, while his face was covered in excitement and delight. Just a while ago, Xianxia received word from his elder sister. She told him that the Sword Emperor, Yang Yi, would be passing through Martial World City, and that he must capture Yang Yi. Even if he couldn't capture Yang Yi alive, it was all right to bring Yang Ye's corpse back. Moreover, she said that the mortal emperor Luo Jun would definitely give him an important position if he were able to deal with Yang Yi at Martial World City. Of course, the thing that delighted him the most was that because Yang Yi was passing through Martial World City and for the sake of capturing Yang Yi here, the emperor of the exalted Han Empire had given him command of all the troops throughout the city. Moreover, the emperor had even ordered the sects and clans within the sect to cooperate with him. In other words, the entire city could truly be considered to be under his control now. Of course, he'd never thought about how long it would last. However, there was one thing that he was certain of. If he was able to capture Yang Yi or kill Yang Yi, then he would definitely have a better future even if he couldn't really take control over Martial World City. In short, it was time to change his destiny. Notify everyone to gather outside the estate. Xianxia walked out of his room in high spirits. Outside the city governor's estate. At this moment, countless profounders were gathered outside the city governor's estate. All of them were residents of the city, and there were many at the mortal realm. However, there were also those at the first heaven realm, king realm, and even many at the spirit realm. Everyone, I gathered all of you here today to tell you that the Sword Emperor from the Southern Territory, Yang Yi, is going to be passing through our city. I presume that all of you are familiar with him, right? Yes, he slaughtered the city governor and thousands of troops in Needless City, and he annihilated the guards and city governor of Huntsman City as well. Moreover, I heard that he's even unscrupulous to the point of killing even children, the elderly, and women. Everywhere he passes, corpses cover the ground while blood forms into rivers. Now, he's going to arrive at our Martial World City. So, what do all of you think we should do? Xianxia stood before the door to his estate while he gave an inspiring speech, and he even utilized his profound energy to enhance his voice and waved his hands about incessantly in order to be even more inspiring. Yang Yi? That sword emperor who came from a barbaric area like the Southern Territory. TSK. He's really overestimating his strength. A sword cultivator from such a savage place actually dares to call himself the Sword Emperor and even dares to run wild in our central territory. He's truly courting death. I heard that the reward for killing him is 8,000 top-grade energy stones and a few mid-grade heaven rank techniques and treasures. Right? It even provides the position of city governor for a city with around 5 million residents. TSK, TSK. Such rewards. Haha. That fellow's life is mine. Don't fight me for it. Ha ha ha. He actually dared to come to our central territory and even dares to pass through our martial world city. He's really courting death. Does he think our martial world city is a trash city like Needless City and Huntsman City? Humph. It's fine if he doesn't come. But if he dares to, then I'll definitely make him stay here forever. In any case, I just happen to be lacking energy stones. I heard Xianxia's strength isn't bad. So what if it is? Could he be able to slaughter our entire city? Does he even have the ability? Even if he's a 9th rank Exalt Realm expert, he still has to bow before us once he's in Martial World City. Indeed, we can't allow that barbarian to run wild in our city no matter what. Xianxia nodded with satisfaction as he gazed at the furious crowd, and then he said, "Everyone, I've obtained news that he has entered our city. So, I've ordered for the anti-flight formation to be activated and the 4 city gates to be closed. Now, we just have to find Xianxia in the city and kill him. I'll order my subordinates to post up Xianxia's portrait throughout the city. So all of you can go have a look. Haha. Glory and wealth are right before your grasps. And it's just a matter of whether all of you are able to grab onto it." A robed man within the crowd who wore a cloak raised his head to gaze at Xianxia, and his eyes were filled with bewilderment. The man was Xianxia. He'd entered Martial World City a while back, and he intended to leave it without making a sound. However, he hadn't expected that the city gates would be suddenly closed, and the anti-flight formation was activated as well. He was very puzzled by that development. When he heard the city governor of Martial World City right now, he finally understood that it was done intentionally. However, he felt even more bewildered because he wondered how this fellow, the city governor, could have possibly found out that he was at Martial World City. After all, he was sure that nothing was following him. Could a Monarch Realm expert have made a move? Xianxia's face sank when he thought up to this point, because if it was like that, then he would be in a very bad situation. Even if he couldn't win against an Exalt Realm expert, he could still run from that expert. But if it was a Monarch Realm expert, then he wouldn't even have the chance to run. Xianxia fell silent for a moment before he put the ancient sheath away, and then he turned around and left. Regardless of whether it was a Monarch Realm expert that had targeted him or not, it was pointless to think about it now, because he had to escape the city now. After all, he didn't want to be trapped here, and he would be besieged to death by the horde of profounders in the city if his identity was exposed. "Hey! Stop right there!" Xianxia was just about to enter a corner when a voice suddenly resounded from behind him. Xianxia paid no attention to the person who called out to him and continued forward. "You're courting death." A strong gale assaulted Xianxia from behind. Xianxia stopped moving before he swiftly turned around and smashed his fist forward. Crack! The sound of the bones within an entire arm breaking resounded when Xianxia's fist collided with that person's fist, and then that person was blasted flying before falling unconscious on the ground. Xianxia looked over and saw 6 people were standing before him, a group of 5 men and a woman. The leader of the group was a robust man with thick brows and large eyes, and he used his shoulder to hold up a large and wide saber which was even larger than his own shoulder. The robust man glanced at the young man on the ground whose fate was unknown, and then he raised his head to look at Xianxia and said, "Nice ability. That brother of mine is at the 7th rank of the King Realm, but he wasn't even able to endure a single punch of yours. You don't seem very old, so I'm very curious when a genius like you arrived in Martial World City." Xianxia glanced at the man, and then he turned around and walked away. Swoosh! The sound of air being torn apart resounded. Xianxia turned around, stretched out his hand, and grabbed. He grabbed an iron arrow in his hand, and he looked at the woman in the group. "You injured a brother of mine yet intend to leave just like that? Isn't that?" The robust man suddenly shut his mouth while his pupils constricted because the arrow in Xianxia's hand had shot back towards them at a speed which was a few times faster than before. The woman was horrified by this. Fortunately, the robust man stood in front of her, and he slashed the arrow with the large saber in his hand. causing it to be instantly blasted flying. However, the robust man's face was solemn because his hand was trembling. Xianxia glanced at the gathering crowd, which had been alarmed and drawn over by the commotion here. He hesitated for a moment, and then didn't attack in the end. He just turned around and left. He really couldn't expose himself too much at a time like this because the consequences might be terrible. "You're Xianxia." Right at this moment, the robust man's furious roar suddenly resounded from behind Xianxia. "Xianxia?" Those two words were no ordinary words now. So, the expressions of the spectators had instantly changed when they heard him, and then they surged over and surrounded both Xianxia and the robust man. Moreover, the amount of profounders surrounding them was growing in number. All of them were staring at Xianxia with hostile gazes. Xianxia stopped moving, and then he turned around to gaze at the robust man as he said, "I've never seen someone who wished to court death as much as you do." When he spoke up to this point, Xianxia withdrew a blank piece of talisman paper and a talisman brush before he started crafting a talisman right before the eyes of everyone. And it wasn't long before a strength talisman appeared in his hand. Xianxia held the talisman in his hand and waved it around in a circle before he said, "Everyone, I'm a talisman master, and I can't show my face in public for certain reasons. I presume all of you understand, right?" The hostility in the eyes of the crowd vanished when they saw and heard this, because they hadn't heard that Xianxia was a talisman master. Since it was like that, they naturally refused to offend a talisman master. Some of them even cupped their hands towards Xianxia before they turned around and left. Those that remained in the surroundings had shot their gazes onto the robust man's group instead, and their eyes were filled with ridicule. The robust man and the others had unsightly expressions on their face since the moment Xianxia announced that he was a talisman master. Actually, he'd come after Xianxia only because he wanted to join forces with Xianxia. After all, every single additional member counter to their overall strength. But he hadn't expected that this fellow would actually be so arrogant, pay no attention to him at all, and even injure a fellow brother in his group. Of course, most importantly, he noticed that this fellow's strength was formidable, extremely formidable. At the very least, he was definitely not a match for this fellow. This made him think of Xianxia, and then he spoke those words instinctively. He was even delighted when he saw Xianxia stop moving because he felt that his guess was correct. However, once Xianxia revealed his identity, the robust man knew that his guess wasn't just wrong. He'd even offended a talisman master, and this talisman master was a formidable expert as well. "Friend, I'm sorry. I'm a nominal disciple of the Endless Sect. It was our mistake. I apologize." The robust man immediately humbled himself and apologized. Even though he was a nominal disciple of the Endless Sect, he was just a nominal disciple, so the Endless Sect would definitely not offend a talisman master for him. "A nominal disciple of the Endless Sect? You apologize? But I refuse to accept it." A wisp of a cold smile arose on the corners of Xianxia's mouth, which was concealed beneath his cloak. "He's trying to use his sect to threaten me at a time like this? I think you should accept it for your own good." Right at this moment, a voice suddenly resounded from the side. A man in a white robe walked slowly towards Xianxia. The expressions of those fellows who were watching the show had changed when they saw the white-robed man, and they instinctively took a few steps back. On the other hand, the robust man and the others were delighted, because they would be fine no matter what. It's an outer court disciple of the Endless Sect. The Endless Sect can be said to rule over Martial World City. We really have a show to watch now. What show? This talisman master will definitely use the opportunity presented to him to extricate himself from this situation. And then they'll shake hands and make up. Alas, how boring. We would have had a show to see. That may not necessarily be the case. Perhaps that talisman master's background is extraordinary. Cut the crap. Wouldn't you know the outcome if you just watch properly? The white-robed man walked over to the robust man, and then he glanced at them and shook his head as he said, "What a bunch of trash! All of you are a humiliation." The robust man and the others revealed unsightly expressions but didn't dare speak a single word. They just lowered their heads and smiled apologetically. The white-robed man turned around to look at Xianxia before he said, "You have to take its master into consideration before striking a dog. Since you knew that they are nominal disciple of my endless sect yet still intended to annihilate them, aren't you looking down on my endless sect? Then what do you want? Xianxia clenched his fist slowly. I originally intended to give tooth for tooth. But since you're a talisman master, then I have no choice but to give you some face. How about this? Leave 100 top-grade energy stones and 100 top-grade talismans behind as their medical expenses, and I'll let you leave. All right? I know talisman masters like you are very rich, and this little bit of wealth should be nothing for you, right? The white-robed man grinned as he spoke. Xianxia said, let me ask you a question. Do you have a master or some sort of backing? The white-robed man was stunned, and then he smiled. Are you trying to find out about my backing? I'm not afraid to tell you that my grandfather is an elder of the Endless Sect. So what do you think? Are you willing to suffer a loss of wealth to escape calamity? No wonder you're not afraid of talisman masters. Xianxia nodded. Suddenly, he stomped the ground with his right foot, and he relied on his physical strength to shoot forward like a cannonball. He instantly arrived in front of the white-robed man and grabbed the white-robed man's neck before he could even react. Xianxia gazed at the white-robed man whose entire face had flushed red while his eyes simply seemed like they were about to burst from their sockets. And Xianxia said, I know what you want to say, but I won't give you the opportunity. As soon as he spoke these words, Xianxia exerted a little strength with his hand, and the sound of bones cracking resounded as Xianxia broke the man's neck. The spectators were flabbergasted. He died just like that? That's a disciple of the Endless Sect. The robust man and the others had despair all over their faces, because this talisman master before them had even killed a disciple of the Endless Sect after that disciple revealed the backing that he possessed. In other words, this talisman master didn't fear the Endless Sect at all. How stupid was I to have offended such a maleficent existence? Xianxia's gaze descended onto the robust middle-aged man's group, and they practically instinctively took a few steps back. Xianxia said, See, I didn't want to pay any attention to you in the beginning because my target was to look for Xianxia, but you just had to refuse to leave me alone. Now you've courted death. Huh. Alas, isn't it better to keep a low profile? The corners of the spectators' mouths twitched when they heard this. Keep a low profile? You're not keeping a low profile at all. You're the complete opposite of that. However, they also came to understand that this talisman master had come to look for Xianxia. No wonder his strength was that formidable. Xianxia naturally didn't like to waste his breath. The only reason he'd spouted so much nonsense was because he wanted to tell everyone he wasn't Xianxia, so that those who doubted him would give up. Obviously, his words were quite effective because he noticed that those gazes which were on him had moved away. I admit my mistakes. I won't ask you to show mercy to me, but I hope you'll spare these brothers of mine. I'm willing to accept death, said the robust man in a deep voice. Are you trying to arouse sympathy in me? Sorry, but I'll have to disappoint you because I have no such thing. Xianxia's figure flashed over to the robust man, and then he swiftly smashed his right fist against the robust man's chest. The latter's body instantly split apart as it flew backward. After that, Xianxia's figure flashed swiftly before the others were blasted flying as well. All of them died from a single strike of his, and they didn't even have room to struggle. The gazes the others in the surroundings shot towards Xianxia had transformed into deep fear. Xianxia glanced at their corpses before he turned around and left. He would naturally not spare them. After all, he was their target. Since they dared to come here with the intention of killing him, then how laughable was it to hope that he would let them go? Xianxia turned around, and he walked into a corner before he stopped and said, Are you still going to follow me? Ha ha, friend. Your divine sense is really formidable. 2 men and a woman appeared before Xianxia as this voice resounded. The men were handsome while the woman was beautiful, and they were all 9th-rank spirit realm profounders. The leader of the group of a man who held an iron fan. He smiled at Xianxia and said, I'm an inner court disciple of Clear River Sect, Lu He. This brother by my side is the Sikong clan's Sikong Ming. This beauty is the Mo clan's Mo Qingyue. The 3 of us have no ill intent towards you. We just noticed that your strength was extraordinary, and your objective was Xianxia. So we wanted to form a group with you to hunt Yang Yi, the Mo clan. Yang Ye's gaze descended onto the woman. He hadn't expected that he would meet someone from the Mo clan again, and it made him recall the promise that he'd made his mother. He said in his heart, I should probably head to the Mo clan once I'm done with the Saint ruins. Even though he refused to acknowledge his ancestry, he still intended to complete his mother's wish. Mo Qingyue seemed to have noticed Yang Ye's gaze and frowned a little, but she didn't flare up. I know your strength is formidable, and you're very confident in your own ability, but I have no choice but to strike a blow to your confidence. Not to mention that you're only at the spirit realm right now, you'll probably be unable to kill Yang Yi even if you've attained the Exalt realm, said Lu He. Oh? Why? Hearing others talk about him felt very interesting to him. Lu He said, there are many ignorant fellows in the city, and that includes the city governor. They think that Yang Yi is just a spirit realm profounder, and they can use numbers to kill him with ease. Yet they're unaware how stupid such thoughts are. Even though he's only at the 3rd rank of the spirit realm, his sword intent is at the 8th level, and he even possesses numerous natural treasures and Dao artifacts. His combat strength is sufficient to kill ordinary Exalt realm experts. Perhaps only the martial god, and Nanjing, is the only person throughout the continent who can rival his strength at the same realm of cultivation. Fortunately, these fellows aren't aware that I've attained the 4th rank of the spirit realm and 9th level sword intent. Otherwise, it would truly be too unbelievable. Yang Yi asked, is he really that strong? My cousin's sister was at the 7th level of sword intent, and her cultivation was many ranks higher than his. However, she was still killed by him. So, is he strong or not? Mo Qingyue suddenly said, even though you didn't reveal your true strength just now, we were able to discern based on your physical body and speed that you're a monstrous expert as well. But to be frank, that little bit of strength you possess isn't sufficient to face Yang Yi. Lu He said, even though Miss Mo spoke quite frankly, her words do make sense. She isn't saying it on purpose. Because even any one of the 3 of us would probably die without a doubt if we encountered Yang Yi by ourselves. In the end, it's as I said just now, and Nanjing is the only existence throughout the continent who can truly fight Yang Yi at the spirit realm. Since he's that strong, then why have all of you come looking for him? Even though it's a huge amount of top-grade energy stones and treasures, they aren't worth your lives, right? Said Yang Yi. Lu He smiled and said, of course it's worth it. We wouldn't just obtain all of those rewards by killing Yang Yi, we'll gain fame as well. After all, wealth and fame are sought in the midst of danger. Moreover, we're profounders of the Central Territory, so how could we allow a profounder from the Southern Territory to swagger about here? That's an extraordinary humiliation to our Central Territory. You're a profounder of the Central Territory as well, so I presume that even you can't stand it, right? So that's why. That fellow Luo Jun is really good at scheming. Yang Yi laughed coldly in his heart. He launched a full-scale bounty for me throughout the Central Territory and announced everything I did merely for the sake of making the Central Territory become hostile against me, or I should say against the entire Southern Territory. No wonder he hasn't sent a true expert to kill me until now. So that was his plan. Needless to say, Luo Jun's plan was very well made. Because it was just Luo Jun who was seeking to kill him in the beginning. But now, Luo Jun's actions had made him the common enemy of the profounders throughout the entire Central Territory. However, he didn't care. In any case, he had a huge number of enemies already, so a little more wasn't a big deal. Brother, what do you think about forming a group with us? If you're willing to join us, then our chances of killing Yang Yi upon meeting him would definitely increase greatly. Don't worry, we're very fair. The rewards we obtain from killing Yang Yi will be split equally amongst us. Lu He invited Yang Yi sincerely. Yang Yi had originally intended to refuse because he wasn't interested in cooperating with them to kill himself. But when he gave it some thought, he realized that it was a good opportunity to pull the wool over the eyes of everyone in the city. Perhaps he would even be able to rely on this to leave Martial World City. So, when he thought up to this point, Yang Yi said, I agree. But let me say it in advance. We'll share the rewards equally once we kill Yang Yi. Lu He was delighted when he heard this, and he said, of course. With you in our group, brother, that sword demon, Yang Yi, will definitely die upon meeting us. Definitely die? Yang Yi glanced at Lu He with a strange gaze and said, Perhaps. May I know your name? Said Lu He. Yi Yang. Brother Yi. Let's head to the Pavilion of Indulgence because the disciples of numerous clans and sects have gathered there. Moreover, our intelligence will be sent there as well. So, perhaps we'll be able to obtain even more information related to Yang Yi by going there, said Lu He. All right. Just like that, Yang Yi, Lu He, and the others headed to the Pavilion of Indulgence. Even though Yang Ye's strength is formidable, he would absolutely not dare to show himself without a disguise at Martial World City. So, we just have to find him in the city, and the only way to do that is by elimination. In other words, we have to specially look for those profounders who conceal their appearances. In that way, it would naturally shrink down the scope of our search. Yang Ye's group had just walked into the Pavilion of Indulgence when words that caused Yang Ye's eyelids to twitch resounded through the hall here. Yang Yi looked over towards the source of the voice, and he noticed that it was a young man who spoke those words. The young man wore a brown-colored robe, had a sword hanging on his waist, and there was a tiny ascension embroidered on his left shoulder. Obviously, that young man was a disciple of the Ascension sect because Yang Yi had killed a few people from that sect, and all of their clothes had the same word embroidered on it. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings and noticed that there were actually over 1,000 profounders here. Moreover, practically 90% of them were at the spirit realm. It was even to the extent that he noticed some obscure auras. Obviously, they belonged to Exalt realm experts. The corners of Yang Yi's mouth couldn't help but twitch when he thought of how they'd come to kill him. Money really does make the mare go. Profounders who conceal their appearances? Oh, isn't there one here right now? Seated opposite the young man from the Ascension sect was a man whose clothes were embroidered with a sword, and he glanced at Yang Yi who just walked into the hall and spoke sarcastically. Many people looked over towards Yang Yi when they heard this. Meanwhile, Lu He hurriedly took a step forward and cupped his fists to them. Everyone, I'm Lu He from the Clear River sect, and this is a friend of mine. He's a talisman master, and the reason he has concealed his appearance is merely for the sake of avoiding potential problems. You should be aware that talisman masters have slightly strange dispositions. The expressions of many changed a little when they heard that Lu He was from the Clear River sect. After all, it was a 9th rank sect, so not just anyone could offend him. Coupled with the fact that Lu He said Yang Yi was a talisman master, the gazes of many merely stopped on Yang Yi for a moment before they moved away. They didn't feel that a disciple of the Clear River sect would collude with Yang Yi. The young man with the sword embroidered on his clothes continued. I think that it doesn't matter who the person is. We should treat all profounders within the city equally in order to accurately locate Yang Yi and prevent him from taking advantage of the situation in the city. After all, it's better to be safe than sorry, right? I agree. That disciple from the Ascension sect glanced at Yang Yi and said, Lu He, even though my Ascension sect and your Clear River sect aren't really friendly with each other, I'm not targeting you on purpose this time. After all, if Yang Yi were to sneak his way into our group and succeeds in deceiving us, then it would be an extraordinary humiliation to all of us, right? Brother Yi Cheng is right. It's best for all of us to be cautious at a time like this. We can't allow Yang Yi to sneak into our group, someone else chimed in. Indeed, if we were to start a grand search for Yang Yi yet he was right by our side, then wouldn't we bring shame to our sects and all the profounders of the Central Territory? Why be such hypocrites? Wouldn't it be easier to just remove his cloak and let everyone see his appearance? Remove it. Remove it. Obviously, that disciple from the Ascension sect called Yi Chun had a very good reputation, and his worlds caused the gazes of many to descend onto Yang Yi. Moreover, all of these gazes carried hostility. Lu He's expression was slightly unsightly. He was just about to speak when Yang Yi walked over to the center of the hall, and then he glanced at the crowd which was making noise about removing his cloak. He said, You want to remove my cloak? Come do it if you have the ability. As he spoke, Yang Yi gazed at the young man who had a sword embroidered on the chest area of his clothes. It wasn't just Lu He's expression that changed upon hearing this. The others in the surroundings were the same. Lu He wanted to say something, but he hesitated for a moment and didn't say anything in the end. He just moved aside because even he wanted to witness this fellow Yi Yang's true strength. Yi Cheng's eyes narrowed as his left hand descended onto the hilt of his sword. He hesitated for a moment yet didn't choose to attack in the end. He glanced at the young man with the sword embroidered on his chest and said, "Yu Songming, he's provoking your divine sword sect. Of course, I can help you fight him if you have any worries, but you'll have to owe me a favor." Yu Songming grunted coldly, and then he gazed at Yang Yi and said, "I presume you have something to rely on since you dared to speak so arrogantly. However, it doesn't matter because I don't care at all. Speak of your sect and background. Let me see if I should spare your lowly life. After all, I don't want to make the matter irreconcilable between people like us who possess status. Cut the crap and just come remove my cloak." Yang Yi acted very arrogantly and gestured at Yu Songming to come at him. "You're courting death." Yu Songming was furious, and a sword appeared in his grasp. He was just about to attack when Yang Yi suddenly said, "Wait, TCH." The others in the surroundings thought that Yang Yi was going to go back on his word, and they instantly started laughing with ridicule and disdain. "What, are you afraid?" Dense disdain appeared on the corners of Yu Songming's mouth. "I have to make preparations." Yang Yi flipped his right hand as he spoke, and then a stack of talismans appeared there. Based on the thickness of it, there were probably over 20 there. After that, Yang Yi picked them up one by one and slapped them on his body while the others watched with astonishment. Moreover, he even spoke as he slapped them on himself. "This is a top-grade strength talisman, this is a top-grade strider talisman, this is a top-grade defensive talisman, this is a top-grade healing talisman, this is a top-grade transmission talisman. Oh, I took the wrong talisman. This isn't how transmission talismans are used." The corners of everyone's mouths twitched while their hearts felt like it was being torn apart. Top-grade talismans, those are top-grade talisman. This fellow actually possesses so many top-grade talismans, and they are being wasted just like that. What a waste. The eyes of many had turned red as they gazed at Yang Yi, and they wished for nothing more than to charge over and bash Yang Yi up. Yi Chang and Yu Songming's expressions had become unsightly. They doubted this cloaked fellow's identity just now. However, at this moment, they had no choice but to admit that he was definitely a talisman master. Because only talisman masters were able to waste talismans in such a lavish manner. In any case, even they who were core disciples of their sects weren't able to use talismans in such a lavish manner. Moreover, all of those talismans were at the top grade. It's absolutely impossible for an ordinary person to use so many top-grade talismans at one time. Even the princes of the exalted Han Empire can't. In other words, this cloaked fellow's identity is absolutely not ordinary. Yi Chang couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief when he thought up to this point, and he felt fortunate that he hadn't been the first to step forward. On the other hand, Yu Songming's expression was unsightly because he knew that he was the first to step forward, and he would have to bear the brunt of it. "I think that there's no need to prove your identity anymore. It was I who was rash." Yu Songming cupped his hands towards Yang Yi, and it could be considered as a form of compromise. "Rash? Forget it. Let me give you a good beating first." As soon as he spoke, Yang Yi stomped the ground with his right foot and didn't utilize any movement techniques. He merely used the propulsion from exerting his physical strength onto the ground to shoot forward like a cannonball, and he instantly arrived in front of Yu Songming. The latter was astounded and was just about to draw his sword when Yang Ye's fist had smashed onto his chest. Pooh! A mouthful of blood sprayed from Yu Songming's mouth while his figure curved as it flew backward. Bang! Yu Songming flew for over 100 m before his figure smashed against the wall. The iron wall behind him instantly trembled, while another mouthful of blood sprayed from Yu Songming's mouth as his figure fell to the ground. After that, his head tilted to the side as he fell unconscious. Everyone in the surroundings was shocked. Yi Cheng's expression changed. He looked at Yang Yi with a solemn gaze while dense fear could be seen in the depths of his eyes. Lu He and the others in his group were delighted because Yi Yang's strength had far exceeded their expectations. In their opinion, the stronger Yi Yang was, the more beneficial it would be to them. Yang Yi glanced at Yu Tsangming, who laid unconscious there, and then he shook his head and said, I never expected you would be so weak. If you were so weak, then couldn't you have kept a lower profile? As soon as he finished speaking, he glanced at everyone in the surroundings and said, Does anyone else want to remove my cloak? If there is, then don't waste my time and just step forward. All of them remained silent, including Yi Cheng. Yang Yi relaxed his clenched fists and said, Since there's no one else, then just do what you were doing. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi returned to Lu He and the others. The strong were respected on profounder continent. So, one had to possess formidable strength in order to obtain the fear and respect of others. The reason Yang Yi had acted against Yu Tsangming like that was merely just to make an example of him. Because the gazes of everyone had descended onto him, so they would feel even more suspicious of him unless he removed his cloak. Of course, there was another method to deal with the situation, and it was to deter them with strength. Obviously, that method was really good because only a few people here dared to look at him. Yi Cheng glanced at Yang Yi before he moved his gaze away, and then he looked at everyone else and said, Everyone, I know that all of you want to kill Yang Yi, and even want to claim the exalted Han Empire's reward on your own. However, I have to advise all of you that while Yang Yi is only a spirit realm profounder, it isn't difficult at all for him to kill ordinary exalt realm experts. So, if all of you don't want to die, then immediately notify everyone else once you've found Yang Yi. Don't do anything stupid. You can only claim the exalted Han Empire's reward when you're alive. Otherwise, you'll just be giving your life away for nothing. Finding Yang Yi in the boundless ocean of people here isn't easy at all, said one of them. It isn't very difficult, Yi Cheng said, because everyone in Martial World City is looking for him. Not to mention Yang Yi, even anyone suspicious would be in trouble. Our job is to find such suspicious people. Moreover, Yang Yi would definitely be trying to leave the city during this period of time because once he leaves the city, then he wouldn't have to fear us at all no matter how many members we possess in our group. So, we can send people to wait for him to show himself at the 4 city gates while the others search within the city. That works. Come, we'll go to the northern city gate. Then we'll take the southern city gate. We'll take the eastern. We have no choice but to take the western. Yang Yi is here. Right at this moment, a sharp cry suddenly sounded out from outside the hall, and it instantly caused everyone here to be stirred. Everyone swarmed out of the door. Lu He's group of 3 flashed towards the outside as well. Yang Yi frowned a little on the spot. Someone is pretending to be me? That should be impossible. Would anyone dare to pretend to be me right now? Does that person want to die? If it isn't someone pretending to be me, then where did that Yang Yi who's outside come from? Yang Yi left the hall while these questions filled his mind. At this moment, there was an ocean of people gathered outside the Pavilion of Indulgence, and more were gathering here. At the center of the crowd was a black-robed and black-masked figure standing there. This mysterious person of unknown gender had a sword in hand, and the person's figure even emanated sharp sword intent. The 7th level sword intent, at least. Yang Yi discerned the level of this figure's sword intent with a single glance. Yang Yi, you won't be able to escape this time. A young man standing before the mysterious figure had a savage expression, and his eyes carried excitement because he was the one to have found Yang Yi. Everyone withdrew their weapons, but they didn't attack. Obviously, they were still quite fearful. After all, Yang Yi was infamous for his strength and ruthlessness. The mysterious person slowly removed the mask under the gazes of everyone in the surroundings, and then everyone was stunned, including Yang Yi. They were stunned because the mysterious person was a woman, and it was even a very beautiful woman. Yang Yi was stunned because he knew her. She was none other than the daughter of ancient domain city's governor, Lu Jianyao. At this moment, Lu Jianyao was quite annoyed as well. She'd concealed her appearance because she didn't want to expose her identity, but she hadn't expected that the profounders here would stare at her with hostility all along the way. In the end, she was stopped here, and it was because they suspected her to be Yang Yi. She was Yang Yi? Lu Jianyao felt both amused and infuriated. At the same time, she hadn't expected that Yang Yi had actually become so infamous in the Central Territory to the point that everyone was chasing after him. But truthfully speaking, she still felt slight admiration towards Yang Yi because Yang Yi had relied on just his own strength to go against the entire Central Territory. Yet the profounders in the Central Territory weren't able to do anything against him. Such a scene was like something the founding ancestor of the Sword Sect had done 10,000 years ago. When they saw that the so-called Yang Yi they were drawn over here for was actually a woman, the experts in the surroundings merely took a greedy look at her before they left. Even though she was beautiful, her strength was obvious for everyone to see. So if they wanted to look for trouble with her, then they had to possess intent at the 7th level or greater. Stop right there. The young man before Lu Jianyao intended to leave but was stopped by her. Even though she'd only just come out to travel the world and temper herself, she knew that she had to be a bit more ruthless while she did it. The young man's countenance instantly turned pale. If Lu Jianyao was Yang Yi, then all the experts in the surroundings would definitely swarm her. Unfortunately, she wasn't. So, since she wasn't Yang Yi, then it was he who would suffer misfortune. When he thought up to this point, the young man knelt before Lu Jianyao, and then swiftly kowtowed as he said, "Great madam, it was my mistake. I mistook you for someone else. Please spare my life." Lu Jianyao was at a loss for what to do when facing such a situation. Because the young man was a spirit realm expert at any rate. Even though he was only at the 1st rank, she hadn't expected that he would be so cowardly. This made Lu Jianyao feel very speechless. The young man interpreted her silence as unwillingness to spare him. So a ferocious expression flashed through his eyes as he suddenly stomped his feet on the ground. His figure pounced forward as he formed a claw with his right hand and clawed at Lu Jianyao's throat. It was so swift and coupled with the close proximity between them, he'd arrived in front of Lu Jianyao in an instant. Hiss! A ray of light flashed, and then the young man's figure stiffened in midair because a sword had stabbed through his stomach. Bang! Lu Jianyao withdrew her sword, glanced at the young man who'd fallen to the ground, and then said, "Yang Yi was right. One can't be too benevolent. He would definitely call me an idiot if he saw this." The corners of Yang Ye's mouth twitched when he heard her, and he said in his heart, "You are an idiot. An extraordinary stupid idiot. Just kill him. Why did you have to talk nonsense? Now everyone here is aware that you know me. I've really never met such a stupid woman like you." Sure enough, all the spectators who were about to leave had suddenly stopped moving when they heard her, and then they turned around to gaze at Lu Jianyao. "You know Yang Yi?" It was Yicheng who asked this question, but it was exactly what everyone in the surroundings wanted to ask. At this moment, Lu Jianyao realized that she'd made a slip of the tongue, and then she hurriedly shook her head and said, "I don't know Yang Yi. How could I possibly know an extremely shameless and despicable fellow like him?" Yang Yi was on the verge of spitting blood when he heard this. Are there no limits to her stupidity? It's fine just to say that you don't know me. Why did you have to insult me? It doesn't matter if you insult me, but don't you realize that your words just happen to prove that you know me? Even Bauer is smarter than her. Yicheng was instantly excited when he heard her. It wasn't just Yicheng. All the other people in the surroundings revealed excited expressions as well. Yicheng said, "You say that you don't know Yang Yi, but why do you know that he's shameless and despicable? Moreover, I didn't look carefully just now, but your clothing and accent doesn't seem like one possessed by the profounders of the Central Territory. Right? Why should I answer you?" Lu Jianyao wasn't a complete idiot, and she didn't follow along his line of questioning. Yicheng said in a low voice, "Every here is looking for Yang Yi right now, so if you do know him, then please tell us information about him. Otherwise, you'll probably die here today even if you're a sword cultivator who has comprehended sword intent. I guarantee that we won't make things difficult for you if you tell us where Yang Yi is." Yang Yi glanced coldly at Yicheng. This fellow really refuses to give up on his desire to kill me. Lu Jianyao had never been threatened by anyone throughout her life, except Yang Yi, of course. At this moment, Lu Jianyao was infuriated upon being threatened in public, and she drew her sword and pointed it at Yicheng. I'll die here? Who do you think you are? Are you even worthy of threatening me? If you have the ability, then come over here and fight me. Looks like you don't want to tell us about Xianxia's whereabouts. Yicheng spoke with a gloomy expression. Everyone, it's very likely that she's a companion of Xianxia's. We'll definitely be able to obtain information about Xianxia's whereabouts by capturing her. Or perhaps Xiangxi would even show himself to rescue her from us. He would naturally not fight her because even he had to fear a sword cultivator who had comprehended sword intent. Humph! Lu Jianyao grunted coldly and said with disdain, "You don't even dare to fight me. What a piece of trash." Yi Cheng's expression became cold. He was just about to attack when an old man walked slowly out of the crowd. He disregarded everyone and gazed at Lu Jianyao as he said, "Little girl, I know from what you said just now that you're definitely related to Xiangxi, even if you don't know his whereabouts. How about this? I won't bully someone weaker than me. Just tell me everything you know about Xiangxi, and then I'll let you go. All right?" An Exalt Realm expert. Xiangxi slowly clenched his right fist. If Lu Jianyao told them that he was a talisman master and possessed a formidable physical body, then it would undoubtedly cause him to be immediately exposed. Xiangxi glanced at the surroundings and noticed that there were almost 20,000 profounders here, and there were at least 5 or 6 Exalt Real profounders, while the Spirit Realm profounders in the surroundings were innumerable. Moreover, everyone in the city would become his enemy once his identity was exposed. Where would he flee then? It was a huge problem. Lu Jianyao's heart shook while her expression turned serious. She wasn't Xiangxi who could kill Exalt Realm experts with ease. So, she fell silent for a moment before she said, "I don't know anything. You've asked the wrong person." Even though her relationship with Xiangxi wasn't a very happy and pleasant one, it wasn't to the extent that she was willing to betray him. Xiangxia's heart felt slightly warm when he heard her. No matter what, she hadn't betrayed him, and it made him feel that he hadn't given her those talismans and energy stones for nothing. "It's actually the amorous sage. I never expected that this dirty old man would come to Martial World City as well. It really is him. TSK, TSK. That woman is going to suffer. I heard the amorous sage loves to play with all sorts of perverted moves. Alas, another beauty is about to fall into the claws of that demon and be wrecked by him. If you can't bear to see it, then why don't you play the hero that saves the beauty? What a joke. Even though he's quite perverted, he's still an Exalt Realm expert. I don't want to die." The old man disregarded all the spectators in the surroundings while he revealed a slightly strange smile and said, "Since you refuse to submit, then don't blame me for bullying the weak. You look quite good, so be a concubine of mine. I have more than one way to make you talk once you've become my concubine." As soon as he finished speaking, the old man's figure flashed and moved to grab her. Lu Jianyao's expression changed, and she swiftly slashed her sword towards the old man, causing a ray of dazzling light to sweep out. The old man's expression changed slightly when his right hand had just come into contact with that ray of light, and he said in his heart, "What sharp sword intent! But it isn't lethal to me." "Spatial cage," the old man shouted while an invisible force instantly locked both Lu Jianyao and that ray of light in place. Lu Jianyao's expression changed drastically. Right when she was about to release her sword intent to blast through the spatial cage, the old man chuckled as his figure flashed and moved to grab her. No one knew whether the old man was doing it intentionally or not, but the old man's hand was actually moving to grab Lu Jianyao's ample chest. Right at this moment, a strand of strong wind assaulted the old man from behind, and it caused his expression to change. He swiftly turned around and blasted his fist forward. Bang! The old man's fist collided with the fist that was smashing down towards him, and then the old man took a few steps back. The expressions of all the spectators changed. "Brother Yi, you." He gazed at Yang Yi with a puzzled expression as he didn't understand why Yang Yi had attacked. At the same time, he was extremely shocked. This fellow's physical strength actually surpasses an Exalt Realm expert. Could he be a demon beast? She knows where Yang Yi is. Do you think we'll be able to obtain that information if she were to fall into this old pervert's hands? Yang Yi spoke flatly. Lu He and the others came to a sudden understanding upon hearing this, and then they came over to Yang Ye's side while they gazed vigilantly at the old man. You! Meanwhile, Lu Jianyao suddenly pointed at Yang Yi while her eyes were filled with shock. The corners of Yang Ye's mouth twitched. If she was stupid enough to expose his identity right here and now, then he guaranteed that he would absolutely torture her 1,000,000 times before flogging her corpse. Lu Jianyao felt that this fellow was extremely familiar, especially his voice. Moreover, she felt a form of pressure from this person. This sort of pressure wasn't related to her cultivation at all, and it was a pressure from sword intent. When this person appeared before her, the sword in her hand had actually started to tremble slightly, and it was telling her that he was very dangerous. There was only a single possibility why she who possessed the peak of the 7th level in sword intent would feel threatened, and it was because the person before her had a sword intent which surpassed her own. When she sensed that sense of familiarity from him, she'd thought of Yang Yi at the first possible moment, because Yang Yi was the only person throughout the world who conformed to both those points. Fortunately, she wasn't stupid enough to expose him on the spot. Who are you? The amorous sage had a gloomy expression on his face while he looked at Yang Yi. That hand which he'd used to collide with Yang Ye's hand just now was concealed beneath his sleeve right now, and it was swollen. Yang Yi stretched out his right hand, and then it became an enormous dragon claw as the others watched with astonishment. The sharp claw caused the old man's expression to change while a vicious expression flashed through his eyes. He suddenly made a grabbing motion towards Yang Yi as he shouted, "Spatial cage!" Bang! Yang Yi suddenly swung his claw, and the old man's spatial cage was instantly torn apart like glass. The old man and the spectators were astounded by this development. Meanwhile, Yang Ye's figure flashed, and his claw whistled sharply through the air as it instantly arrived before the old man, and then it clawed down towards the old man's forehead. The old man's expression changed again. He didn't dare act carelessly against Yang Yi. He withdrew a black iron rod and swung it with his right hand, causing numerous images of his iron rod to fill the sky and envelop down towards Yang Yi. Bang! A muffled bang resounded. The spectators raised their eyes to look over, and they saw that an enormous claw had pierced through the old man's stomach. He killed an Exalt Realm expert while at the Spirit Realm. Everyone gazed at Yang Yi with disbelief. When did such a monstrous genius appear in our central territory? Yi Cheng's eyes were filled with deep fear, while Lu He's group of 3 were extremely excited instead. This fellow, Yi Yang, possesses such terrifying strength. It'll definitely not be difficult for us to kill Yang Yi now that he has joined our group. Yang Yi put the claw away, took the old man's spatial ring, and then looked through it. Yang Yi was instantly quite speechless when he saw its contents because the old man was truly poor. There were actually only a little over 50 top-grade energy stones, while the cultivation techniques and combat techniques were completely useless. Besides that, the old man's spatial ring was actually filled with numerous indecent diagrams and paintings. There were all sorts of them, and there were many strange and bizarre objects that would cause women to blush upon laying eyes on them. What a pervert! Yang Yi took the diagrams and paintings from the spatial ring, and then he crushed the ring into pieces. Why did he take them? It was naturally not because Yang Yi was a pervert as well. It was because those diagrams and paintings recorded numerous styles and positions that Yang Yi had never seen before. So, Yang Yi had taken them with the intention to learn and gain knowledge. After that, Yang Yi glanced at the crowd before he walked towards Lu Jianyao and said, "Come with me. Don't try to resist me. You've witnessed my strength. I really don't want to act ruthlessly and crush a beauty." At this moment, he still had to put on an act. Otherwise, they were bound to arouse the suspicion of others. Unexpectedly, Lu Jianyao actually nodded and said, "All right, I'll listen to you." Yang Yi almost fainted. Why isn't she getting into character? At least resist a little. Even if you don't resist, can't you reveal a slightly sad and troubled expression? How can you actually agree when I said that I intend to take you with me? Moreover, you're even smiling. As expected, the people in the surroundings gazed at Lu Jianyao and Yang Yi with slightly strange gazes. "Let's go." Yang Yi really couldn't do anything about her. He just turned around and left. Lu Jianyao hurriedly followed him. Lu He and the others exchanged glances before they hurriedly followed Yang Yi as well. Even though many profounders in the surroundings were quite suspicious and puzzled, they could only remain puzzled and suspicious out of consideration for Yang Ye's strength, and not a single one of them dared to make Yang Ye's group stay. They were just very curious about a single thing. When did such an extraordinary genius appear in the Central Territory? The Pavilion of Indulgence. In a room within the pavilion, Lu Jianyao sized Yang Yi up incessantly. She seemed to have many things to say, but a strand of faint sword intent would envelop her every time she wanted to speak, and it caused her to feel very depressed. At this moment, Yang Yi was quite depressed as well because he didn't want to have her by his side at a time like this. After all, it was very easy for him to be exposed with her by his side. However, it couldn't be helped because he couldn't just watch her die. But how exactly should I deal with her? I definitely can't allow her to stay by my side because it would truly be too dangerous. You know Yang Yi? It was Mo Qingyue who asked this question. Yang Yi glanced at her while he said in his heart, could she be intending to avenge her cousin's sister? But she seems to be too weak to avenge her cousin's sister. She's much weaker than her cousin's sister. Lu Jianyao nodded and said, I know all of you want to kill Yang Yi and desire that extremely tempting reward. However, do all of you think that you can succeed? All of you've witnessed the strength that I possess, right? I possess 7th level sword intent and heaven rank techniques. Besides Yang, Air. Besides this fellow, Yi Yang. Can any of the three of you defeat me? What are you trying to say? Asked Xikongming. Lu Jianyao said, nothing. I'm just trying to tell all of you that if all of you face Yang Yi with your current strengths, then you might not even have the chance to retaliate if he were to use his full strength. To put it simply, besides that monstrous genius of the clan, no one else in the human world can defeat Yang Yi while in the same realm of cultivation as him. All of you are truly courting death by going to look for him. Yang Yi glanced at her. So she even knows how to flatter people. We're courting death? Xikongming laughed with ridicule and said, that may not necessarily be the case. I admit that we're definitely not a match for that demon Yang Yi if we were to fight him in a one-on-one battle. However, we can even kill Exalt Realm experts if we were to join forces. Moreover, we have Brother Yi with us now. We're confident in our ability to deal with a 5th rank Exalt Realm expert with Brother Yi in our group. Yang Yi was able to kill 5th rank Exalt Realm experts a very long time ago. Lu Jianyao spoke indifferently. Lu He and the others revealed grim expressions. After a short while of silence, Lu He gazed at Yang Yi and said, Brother Yi, are you confident in our ability to deal with Yang Yi with the joint forces of our group? Yang Yi remained silent for a while before he said, Brother Lu, I gathered information about Yang Yi before I came here. If it's a one-on-one battle, then it's just as Miss Lu said. Besides the martial god and Nanjing, there is probably not a single person in the same realm of cultivation who's a match for him. I'm embarrassed to say that even I am no match for him. If we were to join forces, then I can only say that we have a chance, but it might end with 2, 3, or even all of us losing our lives. Yang Yi felt that he should try to change their minds. It wasn't that he feared them, but it was better to have as little problems as possible. Besides that, he had a plan in his heart. Unfortunately, he needed them to cooperate with him, and the precondition to it all was that they stopped trying to kill him. Lu He and the others fell silent when they heard Yang Yi. They didn't believe Lu Jianyao, but they still trusted Yi Yang a little. Because all experts were proud, and this fellow before them, Yi Yang, was extremely proud as well. His pride was obvious from how he'd acted decisively since they saw him. Since even he said that he was inferior to Yang Yi, then they felt it was true. But the three of them were quite unwilling to give up just like that. Meanwhile, Yang Yi said, Actually, we might have been used by Luo Jun. Just think about it. The exalted Han Empire is so formidable, and it possesses innumerable Exalt Realm experts. So, why hasn't Luo Jun sent experts to kill Yang Yi and issued such a bounty? Does it seem normal to all of you? We were used. They gazed at Yang Yi with puzzled gazes. Yang Yi said, Think about it. Once he issued such a bounty, wouldn't all of you, geniuses of the various sects, come looking for Yangyi? Since all of you've gone to look for Yangyi, then wouldn't St. Luyun's ruins in the wilds belong to Luojun and only Luojun? Even if it isn't to that extent, his competition would be reduced greatly, right? Slap. Sikong Ming slapped the stone table by his side, and it instantly shattered into pieces. He said, "My Sikong clan thought that there was definitely something wrong with all of this. So Luo Jun's intentions to kill Yang Yi were false, and his true intentions were to draw us away. Damn it. As expected of someone from the imperial household. He's truly scheming." Besides Mo Qingyue, Lu he had a gloomy expression on his face as well. Obviously, he felt that he'd been tricked as well. Only Mo Qingyue gazed at Yang Yi while seeming to be lost in thought. Yang Yi continued, "Actually, my main reason for coming here wasn't Yang Yi but the Saint Ruins. Because I heard that there might be ancient talisman techniques within the ruins. All of you should be aware of how important treasures like that are to talisman masters like me. But I never expected that Martial World City gates would have been closed and trapped me here as soon as I arrived." Lu he suddenly said, "Brother Yi, you intend to head to the Saint Ruins as well?" Yang Yi nodded and said, "How could I miss the opportunity to explode ruins left behind by a Saint Realm expert?" Lu he smiled and said, "Since it's like that, then how about we head there together? I know Brother Ye's strength is formidable and might not like to form groups. But every single person's strength counts. Moreover, the three of us aren't weak at all, and we definitely won't burden Brother Yi. Besides that, there are definitely all sorts of experts mixed within the crowd waiting to enter the Saint Ruins, and perhaps the experts of the demon race and devil race would have snuck in there as well. So, forming a group would be much safer, right?" Yang Yi was delighted. That was exactly what he wanted to hear. However, his expression didn't change at all as he said, "Of course we can. I'm not conceited enough to think that I'm invincible. But Brother Lu, we're trapped within the city now. How are we going to get out?" Lu he gazed at Sikong Ming, and then the latter chuckled and said, "That's simple because the city governor of Martial World City is my uncle. It shouldn't be difficult for me to ask him to make an exception for us. In any case, his target is only Yang Yi." The last worry in Yang Ye's heart vanished, and he said, "Since it's like that, then let's set out right now. There'll probably only be leftovers there if we're late." Meanwhile, Lu Jianyao suddenly said, "I'm going as well. All of you want to leave the city?" Xia Yingho gazed at Yang Yi and the others who stood before him within the city governor's estate as he asked this question. Sikong Ming nodded and said, "Uncle, we've thought it through. Staying here and searching for Yang Yi is a complete waste of time. Wouldn't it be better for us to form a group and temper ourselves instead? Perhaps we might even obtain some fortuitous encounters. Moreover, so what even if we do find Yang Yi? There are so many experts in Martial World City, and there are even Exalt Realm experts, so even if we find him, his life might not even belong to us in the end." Xia Yingho fell silent for a while before he shook his head and said, "All of you can't leave the city." "Why?" Sikong Ming was puzzled. Xia Yingho said, "It's a critical moment right now. What if Yang Yi tricks his way out of the city? Then your uncle I will lose his head. Understand? Moreover, there are many people within the city who want to leave. If I open the gates to let your group out, then it would definitely incur public wrath. The residents of the city are all a bunch of ignorant fools. No one knows what they would do in response." Sikong Ming intended to continue when Yang Yi shook his head instead. He withdrew a stack of talismans and over 100 top-grade energy stones, and then he placed them on the table and said, "City Governor Xia, we understand your difficulties, but please do make some allowances for us. We're all profounders, and we need to improve ourselves incessantly. Moreover, your target is only Yang Yi, so keeping us here is completely useless, right?" The corners of Xia Yingho's eyes twitched as he glanced at the talismans on the table, and then he sized up Yang Yi again and said, "I know quite a few talisman formation grandmasters in the Central Territory. May I know who your master is? Please forgive me. Truthfully speaking, I left without my master's knowledge because he doesn't want me to get mixed up in all these things. He just wants me to concentrate on crafting talismans. But doing that is truly too dull and boring. So, I couldn't help but sneak out, said Yang Yi. Xianxia smiled and said, so that's why. Actually, I can let all of you out off the city. However, perhaps all of you are still unaware of it, but the cities you'll pass through after Martial World City are all on the alert, so you'll still be stopped even if you leave my city. The exalted Han Empty actually went to such lengths just for that fellow Yang Yi? Lu He frowned. Xianxia said, even I'm very curious. It's just a single fellow. No matter how heaven-defying his strength is, it should still be impossible for him to make the Empire go to such lengths. However, that isn't something we should be worried about. What we should do is carry out our orders well. Now, do all of you still want to leave the city? Yang Yi pondered deeply for a moment and said, I wonder if City Governor Xia knows of a way for us to avoid all that trouble we would face after leaving the city? Of course, we won't make City Governor Xia help us for nothing. Xianxia was delighted as he said in his heart, Talisman Masters really are a bunch of fellows who throw wealth around. He feigned being troubled by this request before he finally withdrew a map and said, I presume all of you intend to head to the Saint Ruins, right? Actually, you don't have to pass through the exalted Han Empire's territory to get there, because there's another path. Look here. After you leave the city, head north, pass through the swamplands, go over Mount Heavenshaker, and then traverse the Desert of Exile to arrive at the wilds. Lu He and the others frowned when they heard Xianxia. Xikong Ming spoke with slight anger. Uncle, are you trying to send me to my death? The swamplands? That's where the killer crocodile clan resides. Every single adult killer crocodile is equivalent to an Exalt Realm expert. Besides that, don't tell me you don't know what sort of fellows are living on Mount Heavenshaker. Those fellows are a bunch of madmen that kill anyone they see. Forget those two places. Uncle, are you really trying to kill me by sending me to the Desert of Exile? Xianxia glared at Xikong Ming and said, then what do you want? Kid? Your uncle is only a city governor and no great figure. I'm unable to let you head to the wilds through the Empire. If you don't want to take this path, then you can only wait for the Empire to remove the order to be on high alert. But in my opinion, it won't end until that fellow Yang Yi is found. In any case, whether you leave or not is up to you. As he spoke, Xianxia took the talisman and top-grade energy stones on the table. Yang Yi fell silent for a while. He wasn't afraid of the swamplands or the Desert of Exile. He was unfamiliar with those places. Rashly asking about it was very likely to arouse suspicion. Moreover, if he immediately agreed to the path which Xianxia spoke of, it would make him seem too impatient. So he had no choice but to remain silent. Meanwhile, Lu Jianyao suddenly said, can't we just fly over those places? Xikong Ming shook his head and said, it isn't that simple. As soon as he finished speaking, he gazed at Yang Yi and said, Brother Yi, you should be aware of how dangerous these places are. It's very likely that we'll die before arriving at our destination if we go through these places. Brother Xikong, I only want to ask a single question. Have Spirit Realm experts passed through these places in the past? Asked Yang Yi. Xikong Ming was stunned. Lu He, who stood by Xikong Ming's side, answered for him. I don't know about the other sects, but some disciples of my endless sect have gone to those places to temper themselves, and there are also some assignments in my sect which have to be completed there. Many seniors who accepted these assignments were at the spirit realm. Of course, many of them perished at these places as well. Yang Yi nodded and said, since they could, then why can't we? To be frank, only by ceaselessly challenging things we think are impossible would we be able to improve ourselves without end. Moreover, no matter how dangerous those places are, I think it's impossible for them to compare to the dangers of the Saint Ruins, right? Lu He shook his head and smiled as he said, Brother Yi, it's really a waste that you're a talisman master. If you were able to concentrate on the path of cultivation, then perhaps a sword emperor or martial god would be born in our central territory as well. Fine, I'll do it with Brother Yi. Yang Yi glanced at Xikong Ming and Mo Qingyue. Mo Qingyue didn't hesitate and nodded immediately to display her willingness to take that path. On the other hand, Xikong Ming hesitated for a moment before he nodded as well. Yang Yi nodded, took the map, and then gave Xianxia 50 more top-grade energy stones before he said, "We'll be troubling City Governor Xia with getting us out of the city." Xianxia took the top-grade energy stones and smiled. "It's not a problem." As the moon casted its radiance down upon the world, Yang Yi and the others left silently from the city under Xianxia's arrangement and hadn't alarmed anyone. Yang Yi smiled loudly as he gazed at Martial World City that was standing before him right now. After all the people within the city wanted to kill him. Of course, he wouldn't go trying to seek revenge from them because it was meaningless. They were all just idiots who Luo Jun was using. Killing them would be of no benefit to him at all, and it wouldn't harm Luo Jun's foundations in the Central Territory at all. In the past, Yang Yi didn't believe in destined foes, but he believed it now. Both Luo Jun and he were born in the same era, so they were bound to be destined foes because both of them were peerless geniuses who refused to submit to the other. As it was said, 2 tigers can't coexist on a single mountain. So one of them was bound to be killed by the other. 2 hours after Yang Ye's group left Martial World City, Lu Chongyuan and a robust man arrived at the city. "Have you found Yang Yi?" asked Lu Chongyuan. The robust man fell silent for a while, and then he laid prone on the ground while he pressed his slightly strange nose against the ground. He took a light sniff before he stood up, and then he said, "His scent isn't within the city. He's probably not in there." Lu Chongyuan's face fell, and the robust man said, "But a scent he left behind does exist in the city." In other words, he was in the city. When he spoke up to this point, the robust man walked towards the north and said, "He has probably left in that direction. His scent still lingers on that path. Let's go." Lu Chongyuan's figure flashed and vanished on the spot. The robust man hurriedly followed him. After Lu Chongyuan left, a veiled woman in violet armor arrived at the city, and then she went straight to the city governor's estate. "I didn't know the special ambassador would be arriving. I'm sorry for not welcoming your arrival. Please do forgive me." Xianxia bowed slightly to the veiled woman, and he spoke in a slightly courteous manner. Even though they were both Exalt Realm experts, he knew his own limitations. He was absolutely not a match for her because she was a member of the Empire's Royal Guard, and she was a trusted subordinate of the current Crown Prince. The Royal Guard were only loyal to the Emperor, and it was an army that even the mortal Emperor feared and was unable to take control of. The veiled woman said, "City Governor Xia, there's no need for pleasantries. I merely came here to tell you that Yang Yi isn't in Martial World City anymore." "What?" Xianxia was shocked and said, "That's absolutely impossible. I've ordered for the entire city to be locked down. Even a mosquito can dream of flying out of the city. How could Yang Yi have possibly fled the city?" The veiled woman said, "I didn't come here to get into an argument with you. From today onward, all the troops within Martial World City will be under my control. You only have to do 2 things. Firstly, notify everyone within Martial World City that Yang Yi has left the city. Secondly, gather all the profounders within the city who are at the 5th rank of the spirit realm and above, and ask them to gather at the northern city gates. Kill all those who aren't there within 15 minutes. As soon as she finished speaking, the veiled woman turned around and left. However, she stopped when she arrived at the door and said, "That includes you, City Governor Xia." The swamplands. As its name implied, it was a swamp. It covered a very huge area that was at least 5 times larger than Martial World City. There were many killer crocodiles within the swamp, and adult killer crocodiles were equivalent to Exalt Realm experts. Moreover, there were at least 50 adult killer crocodiles within the entire swamp. 50 Exalt Realm experts. Even Yang Yi was surprised when he heard this number. Fortunately, the killer crocodiles didn't live in groups, especially once they'd achieved adulthood, because all of them had their own territory then. In other words, they were separated, and it would be much easier to deal with them since they were separated. However, there was a problem in their way, and it was how they should pass through the swamp. Should they walk? Even though it was a swamp, it wasn't entirely covered in a swamp. There were many paths through it as well. But the problem was that walking through those paths made it very likely for them to be besieged by countless killer crocodiles. They were truly not confident in their ability to take such paths until the end with the strengths they possessed. As for flying, how long could they fly for? What if their profound energy was exhausted while they flew, and then they fell into the swamp? Let's go. Xianxia remained silent for a while before he decided. If he used the 9th Hell Sword Wings, then he could fly through the swamp, but the problem was, could he even use it? The 9th Hell Sword Wings had become a unique symbol of his. But if he didn't use the 9th Hell Sword Wings and used his wings condensed from profound energy instead, then truthfully speaking, even he wasn't confident in his ability to fly through the swamp because it was truly too vast. Moreover, Lu Jianyao and the others were by his side as well. Since he couldn't, then it was even more impossible for them. Lu Jianyao was slightly excited and burned with eagerness when she heard Xianxia. In any case, Xianxia was here, so she felt that the killer crocodiles were nothing to worry about no matter how many of them were present in the swamp. On the other hand, the corners of Lu He, Xikong Mind, and Mo Qingyue's mouths had twitched. They were truly not confident in their ability to fight their way through the swamp. Their group had just entered the swamp when Xianxia suddenly stopped moving, and then he swiftly turned around and gazed towards the distant horizon. He fell silent for a while before he said, "All of you go on without me. I have something to deal with first. I'll catch up once I'm done." All of them were stunned, and then Lu He said, "Brother Yi, you're not coming with us?" Lu He wasn't confident in their ability to traverse the swamp if Yi Yang wasn't going with them. Xianxia fell silent for a while before he said, "To be honest, my master might have sent someone to take me back. If all of you are here, they'll definitely blame all of you if you're here by my side. Perhaps the situation can still be saved if I'm all alone. If it's really impossible to turn the situation around, then fleeing is still possible with the strength I possess." Lu He and the others came to an understanding. Yi Yang's strength was sufficient to flee even if he couldn't defeat the fellows that his master sent after him. However, they didn't possess such strength like him. To put it simply, they were burdens. Even though it was quite a blow to their confidence, it couldn't be helped because it was a fact. Moreover, this brother Yi of theirs could be said to have given them a good amount of face already. However, they were quite curious. Exactly who is Yi Yang's master? But he clearly had no intention to tell them, and they didn't want to be swept into the affairs of someone else's master. So Lu He said, "Take good care of yourself, brother Yi." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left with Xikong Ming and Mo Qingyue. However, Mo Qingyue's gaze had lingered on Xianxia for a few breaths of time before she turned around and left. "You go with them as well." Xianxia gazed at Lu Jianyao and spoke with an indisputable tone. "Are the fellows coming to kill you very strong?" asked Lu Jianyao. Xianxia nodded and said, "Besides those 9th rank Exalt Realm experts of the Flower Palace, this person is the strongest Exalt Realm expert I've ever met. Even if we're still a few hundred kilometers apart, I'm still able to sense that sharp and fierce aura of an expert that he exudes. You won't be of any help if you stay behind. So go with Lu He and the others. You'll be able to arrive safely at the wilds with them by your side. You'll win, right?" Lu Jianyao stared Xianxia in the eyes. Xianxia said, "I can't guarantee that I'll win. In any case, I won't die." Lu Jianyao couldn't help but burst out with laughter and said, "I know. You'll run if you can't win. I'll be waiting for you ahead." As soon as she finished speaking, Lu Jianyao turned around and left as well. Xianxia removed his cloak once Lu Jianyao left, and he changed back into his usual clothes. Since they were right behind him, then it represented that his identity was exposed. Thus, continuing his efforts to conceal himself was meaningless. However, he was very curious about how they'd see through his identity and knew his whereabouts. Bang! 2 figures descended not too far away from Xianxia. Lu Chongyuan sized up Xianxia and said, "You're Xianxia." Xianxia nodded. Lu Chongyuan tapped his spar forward from afar, and then a sharp spear image shot out from within it. The spear image instantly arrived before Xianxia at an extremely swift speed. Xiangxia's expression didn't change at all as he smashed his right fist forward. An explosion resounded as they collided, and then the spear image was blasted into dispersal. Lu Chongyuan grinned when he saw this and said, "As expected of the Sword Emperor. Just that attack of yours tells me that I didn't come here for nothing. Even though I really want to kill you after you've attained the Exalt realm because it would be more exciting, unfortunately, my sect has given me orders that I dare not disobey. But don't worry. I'll give you a proper death out of respect for your title as the Sword Emperor." Xianxia said, "I'm really curious. How exactly did you find me?" Lu Chongyuan chuckled, and then he pointed at the robust man by his side and said, "He's a demon beast, a descendant of the ancient divine beast, the Tingdi. So long as it's a scent he has smelled, then he'll never forget it. Besides that, his innate ability, Manhunt, allows him to accurately pinpoint the location of a scent he has smelled if the owner of the scene is standing on the ground and within 500 kilometers of him. My Ascension sect didn't just summon me back from the demon territory to kill you, it even sent him with me. Needless to say, you should feel honored even in death." Xianxia glanced at the robust man, and then he nodded and said, "I have no further questions. Now, will you be fighting me on your own? Or will the two of you be attacking me together?" "Ha ha!" Lu Chongyuan roared madly with laughter, and he laughed for a while before he said, "I heard you were very arrogant when I arrived at the Central Territory, but I never expected you to be even more arrogant than I imagined. Join forces against you? Xianxia, do you really think you are the founding ancestor of the Sword Sect? Allow me to show you how there's always someone stronger in this world." Lu Chongyuan suddenly vanished on the spot, and he was in front of Xianxia when he appeared once more. Moreover, the cold tip of a spear had arrived a few centimeters away from the center of Xianxia's forehead. From the moment Lu Chongyuan attacked until the tip of his spear arrived before Xianxia, it had only been less than half a breath of time. Clang! A sword that was covered in an icy cold glow blocked the spear, and they both trembled violently. In the next moment, the spear suddenly spun while a strand of fierce light sprayed out from it. On the other hand, the cold blade of the sword trembled slightly before a strand of ferocious sword intent and cold light surged out from within it to collide with the fierce light emanated from the spear. Bang! A shockwave swept out from the point of collision. Lu Chongyuan took a few steps back while Xianxia did the same. Lu Chongyuan's face was covered in excitement as he said, "As expected of the Sword Emperor, it's awesome. Let's continue." His voice hadn't even finished resounding when Lu Chongyuan arrived in front of Xianxia once more. Xianxia was about to attack once more when Lu Chongyuan chuckled, and then his figure shook before countless Lu Shangyuans immediately appeared all around Xianxia. Xianxia's brows knit together slightly, but a cold smile covered the corners of his mouth. This was no movement technique, and it was merely numerous afterimages created by Lu Chongyuan's speed. However, Xianxia, who possessed the enlightened sword heart, was able to locate Lu Chongyuan, even if he closed his eyes. But Xianxia didn't look down upon Lu Chongyuan at all because such speed was far more terrifying than any movement technique. This was pure speed, so he wasn't confident in his ability to kill Lu Chongyuan even if he knew where Lu Chongyuan was. After all, Lu Chongyuan was too swift. Right when the tip of Lu Chongyuan's spear was about to stab Xianxia's throat, a sword blocked the tip of the spear with pinpoint accuracy. Clang! The resounding sound of metal colliding resounded, and then both of them were blasted over 10 steps back from the enormous force of the collision. The enlightened sword heart. Lu Chongyuan's eyes narrowed slightly while a solemn expression appeared within them for the very first time. It was the first time he felt that this sword emperor who stood before him wasn't as weak as he'd thought. But he felt that it was fine and even interesting because he hadn't even gotten serious. Right when Lu Chongyuan was about to attack again, a group had rushed over from afar, and it only took a while for that group to arrive by Lu Chongyuan's side. His face sank while Xianxia frowned, because there were over 300 profounders in this group, and every single one of them was at the 5th rank of the spirit realm or above. Moreover, there were 4 Exalt realm experts amongst them. If this group were to attack, then he wouldn't hesitate to turn around and flee immediately. "This is the one-on-one battle that you spoke of?" Xianxia gazed at Lu Chongyuan while he bluntly revealed his ridicule and disdain. Lu Chongyuan grunted coldly, and then he turned around to gaze at the woman in violet armor. "Who are all of you?" "The Royal Guard. I've come here on orders to capture Yang Yi. The woman spoke with an emotionless voice. He's mine, said Lu Chongyuan in a low voice. He's someone the Empire wishes to capture. Any unrelated parties who obstruct the royal guard will be killed without mercy. The woman revealed killing intent in her eyes. The Empire? Lu Chongyuan chuckled and said, when did my Ascension sect have to obey the exalted Han Empire? Little girl, I'll kill you if you still refuse to fuck off. Yang Yi instantly revealed a teasing smile when he witnessed this. He naturally refused to run right now. If he did, then the two of them would put their conflict aside and target him. He wasn't stupid enough to do that. However, he wasn't just watching the show. The ninth Hell Sword Wings and Blue Sword Chest had appeared on his back. At the same time, he'd prepared extreme-grade energy stones in his pocket while he slapped all sorts of talismans on himself. So long as he noticed that the situation was bad, then he would be able to attack or flee in the shortest amount of time. Kill! The veiled and violet armored woman's figure flashed towards Lu Chongyuan. The group behind her was stunned, and then they hurriedly withdrew their weapons and started attacking Lu Chongyuan and D. Lu Chongyuan's eyelids twitched. He hadn't expected that the woman would actually attack just like that. He was naturally unafraid if it was a one-on-one battle, but the problem was that she had a group with her. Numerous Spirit Realm experts and For Exalt Realm experts. Such a force was beyond unjust to him. Hey woman, fight me one-on-one if you have the ability. Isn't it shameless to gang up on us? Lu Chongyuan shouted while he fought them off with the robust man. Idiot! Yang Yi shook his head. A one-on-one battle? She isn't an idiot, so why would she do that? Even though this spear-wielding fellow was a little stupid, his strength was very formidable because he was actually able to fight the entire group without being defeated right away. Even though he was clearly in a disadvantaged position, he was still able to fight them with ease. This spear-wielding fellow could be said to be the strongest Exalt Realm expert Yang Yi had ever seen, and the greatest genius amongst them as well. It was even to the extent that Yang Yi felt that 9th rank Exalt Realm experts he fought in the Flower Palace would probably not be a match for this fellow as well. There were two more people who drew Yang Ye's attention. One of them was the robust man, while the other was the veiled woman. The robust man was extremely formidable. He'd actually completely given up on defending himself as he fought because the robust man's physical body was almost as terrifying as Yang Ye's. Yang Yi felt that if Lu Chongyuan and the robust man were to join forces against him, then it was best for him to flee. On the other hand, the veiled woman was extremely strong as well. She used a spear as well, and her spear technique was extremely sharp and swift. She stabbed the robust man on many occasions, and it hurt him to the point he grimaced in pain. Moreover, it was even to the extent that as the battle continued, the robust man didn't dare to forcefully resist her attacks with just his physical body. Yang Yi watched quietly while shaking his head or nodding occasionally. On the other hand, the battle between those two fellows from the Ascension sect and the group of Profounders grew more and more intense. Yang Yi would naturally not just stand there and watch. The 4 swords within his sword chest were accumulating strength while waiting to be launched. He was carefully observing the battle and waiting for an opportunity. His target was the spear-wielding man and the veiled woman. So long as one of them was injured or revealed a slightly large opportunity for him to attack, then he wouldn't hesitate to kill them and flee hastily. Yang Ye's eyelids suddenly twitched after around 10 minutes had passed, and then 4 rays of light shot soundlessly out of the blue sword chest while being enhanced by his 9th level sword intent, and they shot towards the battlefield at extreme speed.